Imagine you are living what seems like an ordinary, peaceful life. A close-knit family, parents who seem to care about each other, and a brother who's always been your role model. Everything is smooth. You never thought twice about it. But then one day, something happens that makes your stomach drop, your heart race, and your mind question everything you've ever known. That's what happened to me. My name is Daniel, and this is the story of how I found out my seemingly perfect family was built on a foundation of lies. It started out like any other day. I came home from work, and as I was walking into the kitchen to grab a snack, I noticed something out of the ordinary. My brother Jason had left his phone on the counter. Normally, I wouldn't have given it a second thought, but as I passed by, the phone lit up with a message. It was from someone named Anna, and the preview of the message read, "I miss you. Can't wait for tonight. Make sure your wife doesn't suspect anything." Wife? Jason was married to Claire. They'd been together for years, and as far as I knew, they were solid. I stood there frozen for a second, feeling my brain trying to catch up with what my eyes had just seen. Curiosity, or maybe it was fear, got the better of me, and I opened the message. My hands were shaking as I read the conversation. Jason had been cheating, and not just a one-time mistake. There were months' worth of messages, and Anna wasn't the only one. My mind raced. What was I supposed to do? Should I confront Jason? Should I tell Claire? The room suddenly felt too small, too hot. My brother, the person I'd always looked up to, had been living a lie, and now I was stuck in the middle of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what I'd read, replaying the messages over and over in my head. Jason was living a double life, and I was now burdened with the knowledge of his betrayal. My mind jumped between anger, confusion, and betrayal. How could he do this to Claire? How could he lie to all of us? I felt like my entire view of him, of our family, was shifting before my eyes. The next morning I decided I had to do something. I couldn't just pretend I didn't know, but I wasn't ready to confront Jason yet. I needed to figure out more. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I started digging. I began watching him more closely, paying attention to the little things, like how often he went out without Claire, the secretive phone calls he took, the way he'd sometimes disappear for hours with vague explanations. The more I paid attention, the more I saw the cracks in the facade he'd been maintaining. Days turned into weeks, and I felt like I was carrying this unbearable weight on my shoulders. I hated myself for knowing and not saying anything. But it wasn't just about Jason anymore. The more I observed, the more I realized that our parents, Linda and Jack, weren't as clueless as they seemed. My mom especially. She had always been the one who knew everything going on in the family. There was no way she didn't suspect something, and as it turned out, she knew much more than I could have ever imagined. One evening, I went over to my parents' house for dinner. Jason wasn't there, but Claire was. She was sitting across from me at the dinner table, laughing and talking like everything was fine. I couldn't shake the guilt of knowing what I knew. I kept catching myself staring at her, wondering how she could be so oblivious. Did she really not see it? Or was she pretending too? After dinner, when my dad had gone out for a walk and Claire had left, I found myself alone with my mom in the kitchen. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had to ask her, "Mom, do you think something's going on with Jason?" I asked, trying to sound casual but knowing I was failing miserably. She stopped washing dishes and turned to look at me. For a moment, there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Was it fear? Guilt? She sighed and sat down at the kitchen table, gesturing for me to sit with her. "I've known for a while, Daniel," she admitted, her voice low and tired. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My own mother knew. She knew Jason was cheating, and she'd done nothing. I couldn't believe it. My whole life, I'd thought of my mom as someone who always stood up for what was right, someone who would never let something like this slide. But here she was, admitting that she had known all along. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell Claire? I asked, my voice shaking with anger and confusion. Mom looked down at her hands, avoiding my eyes. It's complicated. Your father and I didn't want to interfere. Jason's our son. We didn't want to break the family apart. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. They didn't want to break the family apart? What about Claire? What about the family Jason was destroying with his lies? My mind was reeling. This wasn't just about Jason anymore. This was about my parents, too. They were complicit in this, choosing silence over doing the right thing. I stormed out of the house that night, unable to handle the weight of what I'd just learned. My family wasn't what I thought it was. The people I trusted most were hiding secrets, protecting Jason at the expense of everyone else. In the days that followed, I tried to confront Jason. I tried to sit him down and talk, but every time, he brushed me off, acting like everything was normal. It was infuriating. How could he live with himself, knowing what he was doing to Claire, to all of us? But then, something happened that changed everything. Claire came to me one day. She'd found the messages. She'd found out about Jason's affair on her own. I didn't have to tell her. She already knew. The look on her face when she told me. There was so much pain, but there was also a strange sense of relief. She had been suspecting something for a while, but had been too scared to confront it. Now that the truth was out, she couldn't ignore it anymore. I don't know what to do, Daniel, she said, her voice breaking. I love him, but I can't stay with him after this. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? There was no easy answer. All I could do was be there for her as she processed the betrayal, the loss of the life she thought she had with Jason. But that wasn't the end of it, not by a long shot. A few weeks later, Claire filed for divorce. Jason was furious. He blamed me for not minding my own business. He accused me of driving a wedge between him and his wife. But the truth was, Jason had done that all on his own. I had just been the unlucky one who got caught in the crossfire. Our family gatherings became tense and uncomfortable. My parents still refused to take a side, but it was clear they were more concerned with protecting Jason than supporting Claire. It made me sick. I couldn't look at them the same way anymore. How could they defend him after everything? But just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. One night, I received a phone call from Jason's ex-girlfriend, Emily. We hadn't spoken in years, but her voice on the other end of the line was panicked and shaky. Daniel, I need to tell you something, she said. It's about Jason. Emily went on to tell me that Jason had been cheating on Claire long before Anna ever came into the picture. In fact, he'd been cheating on every woman he'd ever been with, including Emily. And what's worse, Emily wasn't just an ex-girlfriend. She was the mother of Jason's child. A child he had never told anyone about. A child he had been hiding for years. I was stunned. My brother had a secret child? How much more could he possibly hide? This revelation shattered whatever small piece of respect I still had for him. Jason wasn't just a cheater. He was living an entirely separate life. And the worst part? My parents knew about the child too. They had been helping Jason financially support Emily and their child, all while keeping it a secret from the rest of the family. At this point, I felt like I was living in some sort of twisted soap opera. Every time I thought I had learned the full extent of the lies, another layer was peeled back, revealing even more betrayal, even more secrets. I didn't know how much more I could take. I confronted my parents again, demanding answers. Why had they kept this from me? Why had they chosen to protect Jason over being honest with the rest of the family? My dad, for the first time, showed some emotion. He broke down, admitting that he had always been trying to protect the family from falling apart. He thought that by hiding the truth, he was keeping us all together. But in reality, the lies were tearing us apart. I couldn't stay silent any longer. I had to cut ties. I had to walk away from the toxic web of secrets that my family had become entangled in. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was the only way to protect myself from getting pulled any deeper into the chaos. I told Jason that I was done. I couldn't support him anymore, couldn't pretend like everything was fine. He was furious, of course. He tried to manipulate me, tried to guilt-trip me into staying loyal to him. But I had seen too much. I had lost too much trust. There was no going back. As for Claire, she moved on. It wasn't easy for her, but she found strength in leaving the toxic relationship behind. She eventually remarried and built a new life for herself, far away from the wreckage Jason had caused. And me? I had to rebuild too. I had to learn how to trust again, how to let people in without fearing that they would betray me like my family had. It wasn't easy, and there are still days when the scars of what happened feel fresh. But I've learned that sometimes, walking away from the people who hurt you is the only way to heal. Now, as I look back on everything, I realize that the truth, as painful as it was, set me free. The lies had been suffocating me, and once they were exposed, I could finally breathe again. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that family isn't about blood. It's about trust, loyalty, and respect. And if those things aren't there, then maybe it's time to find a new family, one that's built on honesty and love, not secrets and lies. If you found this story as wild as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you'd do if you were in my shoes. And don't forget to check out my other videos for more unbelievable stories just like this one. My channel, Rippled Bonds, is full of twists, turns, and stories that will leave you questioning everything.